Introducing our first player in the bottom left, in the blue, from Germany, he is Lambo. And his opponent here in the upper right, in the red, the three-time GSL Code S champion from Korea. It is Maru.
One of those players who just does not get phased under pressure. Maru has been up on these stages since he was a wee young lad. Of course, starting his pro gaming career when he was about 13 years old, playing in some of the very first GSL tournaments. And he's really someone who has grown up learning to express himself through StarCraft. And it's so incredible to see because we've got these other players like Rogue, like Neeb, like Cyril, who we're talking about as these amazing, strong players, very defensive, very reactive. Maru can play that style, and he looks maybe not as pristine as those guys, but he still somehow wins the late game. But it's the fact that he bounces between the aggressive. He finds himself in these crazy scenarios like Dan was saying, and he seems to have these magical transitions out of what many other players would call a lost scenario. Maru has that flexibility, and I think it's his range of strategies that makes him very difficult to play against.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying, Pig. And one thing that I noticed when I was in Korea throughout this entire year of casting Maru is he really did engineer a new meta, which he, by the way, seems to not be capitalizing on right now. But I'm going to touch upon this just for a second because this is going to be a big question about how's he going to play as he's here and close to the finish line with the rest of the WCS players here. Will he be doing proxies that much?
Yeah.
He tends to proxy, even if players assume that they're going to be proxy. Now, proxying is when you build structures outside your opponent's main. In this case, he would hide barracks in the middle of the map. Even if the players knew where it was, they couldn't find it and figure out what type of rush it was, so they couldn't stop it. But it seems like Maru's doing more of a feeler build this time around. He's opening up in a conventional fashion. He's just getting a quick command center while steadily teching up. He's using his SCV to deny that third hatchery. Already a bumpy start here for Lambo as that drone's chased away. And now we got the Reaper coming down here to do some harass.
Yeah, I think this is a nice way from both players to open up. That Reaper's going to come in, look for a little bit of damage. Of course, nice micro from Lambo so far. Wants to pull those weakened Zerglings away, and that Queen will be popping out momentarily. But, ooh, one Zergling kill. Good start there for Maru. Anything you can pick off here is good damage because, of course, that Reaper will regenerate out of combat. Now, what's really interesting here is I think Lambo studied his opponent well. Maru doesn't often open up the first game with the 2 racks, but very commonly game 2, or even game 2 and game 3, there'll be that proxy barracks build coming out.
Right.
Yet Lambo's opened up with a hatchery first, which is a little bit risky versus that. He's gotten a good opening. His Queen's going to clear the third. You see the very early creep tumor. Obviously, Maru just being as annoying as possible to delay this third base. But Lambo, so far, his opening's looking pretty smooth.
Yeah, I would say so far, Brigham, we haven't seen any major hiccups, no drones killed off. We even see Lambo now spotting the 2 Hellions being sent down here to the bottom left to try to come in here and do any damage. But I find it very cool that Maru, to start things off with his first game here, now that we're all in LA, at that final stretch, to come in here with something very generic, something very textbook, something, frankly, people who are watching could copy and use in a ladder game. And having that conservative approach versus trying to do anything different than what we've seen throughout the entire year, or more standard for Maru, which is to do that proxy style. That's pretty cool.
He's normally more of a wild player, so it's nice to see him just kind of say, you know what, let's feel it out. As you said, a feeler build. These Hellions and Reapers, one of the most flexible openings in StarCraft, Terran vs. Zerg, is the Hellions into a Banshee. Those Marines are going to deny that Overlord. Will it see the tech lab? Oh, I don't think it managed to see that upgrading. I believe
it did not. We're going to do a vision check there. Okay, it did see the tech lab.
Barely.
So I would imagine that Lambo managed to get an idea that there was the upgrade coming there. By the way, of course, Terran does have the option to try to cancel if that's spotted. Maru does not flinch. He is going to play the way we're seeing it, or the way Lambo's seeing it. That's what you see is what you get.
Yeah, no trickery at all out of the Korean Terran. Going to keep poking in here. These Queens, though, are getting to that point where they do have transfuse energy, able to, of course, heal up the Reapers and the Hellions. Not going to be able to overtake there. But we can see Lambo being very safe. He's building extra Zerglings to make sure the Hellions can't get in. He's got a good Queen count. He's getting Spore Crawlers on each base. So he's really looking to make sure he doesn't take damage. The downside of this for Lambo is he's not building as many workers as quickly as he might often want to. So if he does mess up on his defense, doesn't have his units in position, even losing just a small handful of drones is really bad for Lambo's economy.
Okay, here comes that first cloak Banshee. All right, while this is happening, we have the Hellions coming in from the top. Now, I gotta say, Lambo's defense is actually quite fine here.
Yeah.
But will this Banshee manage to do what Maru's been looking for, is finally chip away at the economy? 3 drone kills is not bad, but it's not, I would say, enough. Not what Maru's going to be satisfied with.
Yeah, he's still exerting pressure. I like the way he's rotating around. He's trying to slow the creep spread on 3 fronts, and that's very hard on this map. But the Reaper goes down. There we go. Creep going through the middle. The Banshee says, nah, I'm here to deny that. Because if you as the Zerg get the creep out far enough on this map, it's very hard to slow it down. So Maru's just looking to try and slow things down. Those Banshees are a unit which are very sort of sneaky. They can come back in later and find damage, but not if the Queens catch them.
Oh, sick! He takes down 1 Banshee. So far, creep spread's quite good. Now, did that Banshee fish out the Queens too far? It did not. The Hellions tried to move in, taking a glimpse at that 3rd base, unable to do any damage. They back out, and Lambo is steadily taking a 4th. Pig, I'm wondering, was this the best way for Maru to open up? Because right now, I think Lambo's keeping a very good pace.
Lambo's playing very clean. I mean, when we've seen Maru get bopped in games, it often is off this opening where he kind of falls behind in the early to mid-game stage. The thing is, I mean, Dan was saying before on the desk, even if Maru looks like he maybe loses a little bit of ground in the next minute or two, like if Lambo can get that creep out further, get the 4th up, I still think it's so hard to finish Maru off. So Lambo's still got his work cut out for him. He's going to spot that 3rd base down there. He's just got to keep working on his creep spread, but I agree, this has been a fantastic opening for Lambo. If he can start breaking some of these rocks down, opening up these paths, and then it's all going to come down to the first tank push. If Maru can get up a good position, trade well, slow Lambo down, the momentum swings back in the Terran's favor. But if that first push gets shut down, that's where the Zerg really gains control and just gets the whole map to themselves.
I couldn't agree more, Pig. And one thing to note is that Maru has shown how elastic his pushes can be. Stuff that looks like nobody should be able to pull it off, he controls so perfectly that it's fine. Now, this drop that comes out here that's going to be picked up before the Banes can connect with, this is all intended to clear some ground for that inevitable push that's going to come.
He's doing a good job of slowing it down, but Lambo's on point with respreading. He's getting into that Hydralisk tech now. We do see these tanks working their way down on the south side. So, of course, this creep clearing here, staging ground for the push. Those rocks need to come down, but they're not down yet. And I think Maru's going to set up a very scary push here. Lambo just built 8 more drones. He's up to 77 workers. That's great a few minutes from now. But at this moment, he needs the Lingbane in position, and he needs to get on top of this army before it sieges up.
So he's drawn some attention over there to those rocks that were in the middle of the map. But in fact, it's going to be a push here from the very south center at 6 o'clock from Maru. He's scanning. He's going to be siege tank set up. It doesn't appear the Lambo's reacted in time.
Oh, that's like 8 Banelings and the Queens all going down instantly. He's got no more Banelings. Tasteless, this is a disaster for Maru.
It's crazy because Lambo's playing so well. But the moment that this push initiated, it looks like Lambo might just get decapitated here, losing those Banelings, losing some of those Queens. And I think Maru, let's see if he advances or not. He knows better than anybody else. It's a long way to try to push through, but already I would say the damage has been done.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. He can always pick up the Marines, just leave the Hellbats to soak any Baneling shots. They're not the most useful unit anymore, and already denying the 4th is huge. We see Lambo here, the big counterattack. He's going to find a few siege tanks in the open. That's a good engagement there for Lambo. Going to take a nice trade.
Okay, and meanwhile, up here at the top, the recovery expansion was taken out now by Maru. Maru immediately doing the damage, then getting out. The counterattack by Lambo has not breached any of the defenses.
Yeah, he's going to get a few SCVs, which is nice, but he needs more than this. Lambo being stuck on 3 bases versus 3 bases, that's never good for the Zerg player. The Zerg wants to be up a base and wants to be trying to kind of outmine and swarm over the map. But we see Maru here defending. He's still got the squad in the north. He's got his army on the south withdrawing, making sure it doesn't get caught too deep. And he's going to reconsolidate and keep grouping his army together. And this is the real beauty of Maru's play. He knows when he can commit, when to just pick up the tumors and fly away. And when he regroups his army and he knows he's got the favorable upgrades, the good position, that's when he'll stand and fight.
Okay, Maru going to back up now. Lambo trying to ambush through those bushes, but it's not quite enough. At this point in time, Maru is outgrown. He's got a way more muscular push than anything that was coming on early on in the game. Now, one thing to point out here with Maru, he's been staying on 3 bases. He's not overextending. Now, he has the option to try to take a 4th and slow this down and then begin to push again. Lambo, while he has lost 2 bases throughout this game, I think there's a chance that he could maybe try to come back somehow, but it would ultimately be up to Maru to have some big mistake here, and we're already seeing Lambo bleed off some units.
Yeah, I mean, he was trying to distract, but that army trapped out Ling Bane in the south side. And look at the spreads on these SCVs. A couple of those Drilly boys take one for the team. Only 5 SCVs for a ton of Zergling Baneling on the north and the south. That was an amazing trade for Maru. Maru's landed his 4th in the north. He's got his +2 attack. He did actually forget his +2 armor upgrade. He was a bit gas-starved earlier on, but it doesn't matter because Maru is up 40 army supply. He's got Liberators out. He's got a massive Marine tank Marauder army. A few Hellbats still in the mix.
Okay, the army from Lambo is now retreating. Now this push is going to try to take out the 4th base. Just down to the bottom left of this screenshot over here, we see the attack coming in once again. Now, Lambo's got Maru put pretty far back, but it's going to be hard to imagine a situation where you can actually deny this push. We see Liberators coming across the map from the top, and this is all intended to get up there and draw some attention away. Meanwhile, Maru comes down here, takes out the 5th base, and will eventually go to that 4th of Lambo.
Oh, classic 3-pronged pressure. Sieging up these Liberators up here on the north side. At the same time, pushing down the south. Lambo's going to try to jump on him before the tanks are sieged, but he sees the spread of Marines. He knows he can't go down that ramp. And Lambo is stuck on the defense, hemorrhaging units, losing workers. These Liberators continuing to find damage that Lambo cannot afford to take. Maru still so precise, saves these Marines. The siege tank on the low ground, starting to siege up this 4th base. Lambo's trying to re-expand to the north, but he's only just started that hatchery, and more workers are going down to that Liberator behind this.
Okay, I think Lambo might have to pull the trigger over here. He comes down now. The Baneling's attempting to connect. We have some blinding clouds spreading down. Is this going to be enough to actually wipe Maru out? It looks like it should be, but with that being said, he can of course escape with the medevacs, regroup with his army that we have a shot of right over here.
That's always the thing with Terran, right? Only part of their army's on your side of the map. They've got so much more at home. And he's going to try to come in here, but the Hydra's blocking the Banelings. Lambo unable to close the distance, and that's a lot of dead Zerg on the battlefield. Lambo running home still on the smaller economy, down to 60 workers. He's got Vipers, he's got Hydras, but we see the upgrade tab. 3, 2, +2 vehicle weapons. All these upgrades on the way for Maru. Maru's got extra command centers, a 5th base. This is the perfect setup for our Terran player.
Okay, Maru, again, playing a very casual game here. He continues to push out, smush Lambo back into the bottom left quadrant of the map.
Yep.
And then back off. He's looking for the expansions like this one we have at the top left. Checking down here at the bottom, there's nothing there. Now, I want to point out, Lambo's done a pretty incredible job of not being entirely killed off in this game.
Yeah.
Here. The problem is I don't see an out for him.
He's just not ever able to gain enough momentum with that big decisive crushing of an army, right? And it's because Maru's not letting him get those engagements. He's slippery. Every time Lambo's looking for the fight, Maru's already off creep, his army spread, and bam, there's a drop, or there's a Liberator, there's something getting into one of these mineral lines. Yet again, another expansion's going down. And Lambo's not playing bad. He's hunting for these angles. But look at this. Once again, Maru, he's trying to protect it. I think Lambo might go in, though. Blinding Cloud landing on all 4 siege tanks. Parasitic Bomb on the medevacs as well. That was a good engagement for Lambo.
Okay, nicely done there. He'll have to expand down to the bottom center, but this push already regrouping over here. Concussive shells about to finish. A lot of this friction on the map is really down here in the bottom right. We have Ghosts finally. Kind of the icing on the cake, the cherry on the cake, if you will, for Terran Tech here, as we're finally into what is late game TVZ.
And that's very nice there for Maru. You know, that engagement from Lambo, he wanted that 4 or 5 minutes ago. He didn't want it this late. It gave him a slight edge in this game in terms of, you know, the efficiency in that one fight. But leading into it, Maru just demolished him. And there we saw another attempted flank. Maru just crushing that army. Lambo Zerg just washing up on the rocks of the Terran.
Really nicely done. Interesting to see that Maru did not do what I guess we're used to, which is a much more unusual approach. That sounds weird coming out of my mouth, but that really is what we're quite more acquainted with when it comes to how Maru plays, is putting proxy barracks out in the middle of the map, or instead doing more of a feelier build. Opening up with something standard, something very textbook, and testing the limits of Lambo. Now, I think Lambo did a really great job hanging off. He fended off several of Maru's attacks, but ultimately, Lambo had no options. They were completely zoned out for any kind of late game.
Yeah, you know, I think the early game went really nice for Lambo. I think he was definitely on par, maybe even had a very small marginal lead on Maru. but he just didn't see that first push coming across. And I think this is partly a confidence thing where Maru did do a very odd push pass. Remember, he came down the very south of that map, and he kind of rocked up, took out all of Lambo's Banelings and his Queens, and Lambo clearly was surprised. I mean, this is something that shouldn't be happening at his level of play, but he just was missing a few spotting Zerglings out on the map. And because of that, he lost the 4th base. Whereas I think Army Supply, he probably could have engaged there. It's just once you lose the Banelings, you're not going in with just Zerglings on their own, right? And I think from there, he was on the back foot, and you're playing against Maru from the back foot. That is such an impossible challenge. So Lambo's got to just kind of tie things up, you know, really tighten up the play, make sure he has better map vision in this next map.
And of course, that question in the back of Lambo's mind, is he going to try to proxy me? Should Lambo do some kind of all-in? You don't have to play the game that Maru wants you to play. I mean, this is how Maru ended up winning everything in Korea this year. Is he figured out openings that allowed him to dictate the course of the game. You're in a state of reacting. He is the one who's in control. Is there anything crazy that, you as a Zerg player, is there anything crazy that you think Lambo could do against Maru here? Or should he go back and try to play a much more standard, conservative game?
It's so weird because when you're playing against a Maru, trying to make like one of these really cheeky Baneling all-ins or Ravager rushes work is just... it's so low percentage. Like, you just don't see Maru die to these things. Same with like a Nidus Worm. You'll see that take out like a lesser Terran player like pretty often. And like Maru will just defend it with no units and hang on and use his SCVs. So I think it's something where Lambo's very much going to be taking the defensive approach to this series. I think he's looking at it and he's saying, I know how you play. You're going to force me to be the reactor, and I'm okay with that. This is a lot of Zergs in Europe are somewhat comfortable with playing that role in the Zerg versus Terran matchup. So if he can just come in here confident, tighten up a couple of things, and I mean, we're worried about the 2 racks. He's worried about the 2 racks proxy. If he's got an answer to that, if it comes out, then things could start moving in Lambo's direction, but it's still a very tall task just to get in his comfort zone in this series.
Introducing our players in the bottom left, in the red, our Terran, 3-time GSL Codes champion, Maru. And his opponent here in the upper right, in the blue, our Zerg player from Germany. He is Lambo.
And we are going to be going into Cerulean Falls here.
Here we go. Here we go. Yep. This is what we were wondering.
And is there a spawning pool that'll go down straight away is the question.
Yeah.
The answer is no, it's going to be a 16 hatch. So I think he still might go a faster spawning pool, but if Lambo just goes 16 hatch into like 18 pool, 18 gas, 17 pool, he's in trouble.
So this is what we were talking about. I know we have more people tuning in to this phase of WCS than ever before, so I want to update everybody because this can be very confusing, because trust me, it was confusing for me for the first half of the year casting this and figuring out that Maru had actually mapped this out. Maru has become so good at proxying. By the way, this is going to be spotted. I don't know if that matters because of the way Maru's been playing. He will proxy in so many different locations. There are so many different rushes. Every time that I've casted him that this has been spotted, if the rush doesn't work, he still turns out to be fine. He has one of these barracks float into the Zerg's main to check the tech while the other one goes back to help wall off and defend. It's kind of crazy. Now, we saw some drones pulled to come down here and try to help attack, but this is pretty straightforward. I mean, it's a Marine rush here with possibly bunkers here to push, depending on how well Zerg's going to be able to hold this initially.
I like that Lambo is not letting him get any free bunker build time, slowing down those SCVs until they have that Marine chaperone coming along. They want to start building bunkers. This is a very aggressive attack. Maru wants to find some big damage, and that's a big drone pull. 2 drones go into the SCV, building the bunker. Great micro from Lambo so far. He's going to keep pursuing as well. This is a big response. He does not want to go out to this. Nice surrounds on these Marines.
Oh,
already
great.
One of them going down there. Good focus fire from Maru, though. 2 drones have fallen.
Beautifully done with the bunker incomplete and 1 Marine taken out. Well, Lambo is absolutely holding his own. But again, this is Maru, who in 2018 has redefined the strength of a bunker rush. And he is not giving up just yet. In fact, he's continuing to make Marines. And in kind of an odd and subtle twist, the Overlord being picked off has supply blocked Lambo.
I think when he was microing those drones, he accidentally pulled that Overlord off the high ground, got exposed. The Zerglings coming in for the surround, and they're going to find it. Nice micro from Lambo, but those are slippery Marines.
I gotta say though, there's enough links. It seems like he's been able to drive some of these Marines onto the high ground. Maru rotating beautifully over this ledge. These 2 Marines stay alive.
Wow, and behind this, the factory is almost finished. That's the art behind Maru's 2 racks. He always does it it with a very quick gas, a factory, so he can start building Hellions or Cyclones, and he will be taking an expansion. Because he's maintained the barracks position, even surviving with just 2 Marines, he's got more rallying out. This means he's keeping the pressure on, and that allows him to build his command center on the low ground, which would normally be a very greedy move. Lambo, though, he's found the SDV. Maru might have to change his plans up there. He's going to at least have to delay the command center, but Lambo's back to droning. He's up on 25 workers. I think this is not a bad start for the Zerg player. Good hold so far.
Yeah, so far so good. Again, this is why this rush is so strong, everybody. You could fly in here after the rush has, as many would say, failed. It really hasn't, the way that we understand this in modern StarCraft 2 and Legacy of the Void. The barracks, one of them scouts the main to confirm what tech, if any tech, there is. Meanwhile, the other barracks goes back at home to help out with production. We see that floating back there now.
Yep.
And here, with the wall-in setup, the command center on the low ground, how is Terran really behind?
You know, it's funny because you do lose that Marine production. You've got to spend time building the add-ons on the buildings. I mean, we see these Hellions coming out, but they are quite delayed. Obviously, the worker count of Lambo is delayed as well. But I think the real answer here is that it's fragile. You don't have these barracks starting up as early. Notice there's no wall on the low ground. He's even been building extra depots in the main base because he doesn't want to commit to the wall on the low ground in case Lings flood out and he loses them all. So Maru is in this situation where a medevac 4 or 6 Hellions kind of has to do a lot. He's really got to find the openings, find the angles, and if he gets in there and roasts a bunch of drones, yeah, sure, he's looking good. But it all comes down to how well prepared is Lambo. We've got the first Hellion drop on the way across the map. Behind this, it's going to be a Raven and more Hellions. That'll allow him to clear the creep very nicely. So Maru looks like he's setting up for a more macro-oriented game, but this Hellion drop, a lot is resting on its shoulders. Ling speed isn't finished yet.
Okay, the Hellions are going to come in. It seems like Lambo's already ready, at least on paper. Queens and Lings are here to defend, but will Maru get the drone kills off? Good body blocking there with a Ling. But then with that last shot, he's going to be able to come in here and do a little bit more damage. 2 drones down. Now Lambo, of course, uses workers to try to block off.
Oh, those Hellions so slippery, already getting 5 workers. The slow Zerglings, Ling speed just not quite finished. And that's some nice trades there for Maru. Finds some very good damage. He's going to try and get the last Hellion out. It does go down. Altogether, not a terrible hold by Lambo. Bit of mining time, 5 drones and a whole bunch of Zerglings, but he's keeping up his mineral count. His third base looks like it's very healthily saturated. So Lambo's got those 3 bases mining. Meanwhile, I don't think we have a third command center even started just yet. Is Maru thinking about doing a 2-base push maybe?
Yeah, well, one thing about Maru is that when the push comes, it delivers. So I think Lambo's defense, especially control-wise, was pretty good back there. Maru did get what he was looking for, which was some worker kills and getting some of those drones pulled off the patches. He's going to try to inch in here. Lambo again, ready, prepared. The problem is that Maru appears to be getting incrementally stronger in any game he plays in.
Yeah.
He comes in there, he gets a few inches of damage, but that turns into miles later on. He's coming here, cleaning out this creep. Just like our previous game, Lambo pretty good with defending with the queens.
It's really nice, isn't it? You know, he's just kind of very on top of that, and this is a real art form, is trying to deny the creep tumors, keep the pressure on, but don't lose any of these units. And you see now Lambo's starting to really assert himself. He's defended multiple waves of aggression very well, and suddenly he's like, no, get out of my territory. You can't just sit on the edge of creep. Look, I've got enough queens, I've got enough Zerglings, and he's getting the creep very far out. He's got a 4th hatchery on the way. He's got some upgrades coming down as well. I'm really liking Lambo's play this game around. I think he's going to be going into that mid game once again in a very smooth position, potentially with a little supply lead if we can see him drone up that 3rd and 4th base even more. So Maru here, I think, is just playing a very careful game for now. That's a siege tank in a medevac. Ooh.
Yeah, now we've seen Maru do this before. This has become more and more trendy. I think we really saw this mostly with Bunny, the player from GSL in Korea. But what you do is normally when you see 2 medevacs out on the map filled with Marines, you're thinking they're moving out to try to clear creep, take out Lings, anything else. When instead, suddenly a tank pops out, you try to spring a position on them and then force a fight.
Ooh, that depot isn't raised right now, but those Zerglings just poking around to scout the thirds. There's a good amount of Ling Bane. Bane speed, though, is still about 30 seconds from finishing. I think you've got to pull back from those turrets. But the Marines focusing down the hatchery. They're going to try and get it. He wants to force Lambo to fight him before Lambo's ready. Lambo's like, give me time. Baneling speed's almost done, but he's going to have to fight before Baneling speed if he wants to keep that 3rd base alive.
Okay, the auto turrets have been exhausted. They are gone. 1 tank being surrounded now. It is not taken out. And this means the push is going to continue on in here to the north. The Hatchery almost at 1/3 of its HP.
Wow, Baneling speed finishes, but it's too late. Already the trade has been fantastic. Maru's Marines redropping on the low ground. The Raven goes down, that tank finally falls, but Lambo has lost every single piece of his defense.
As the dust settles, some infantry here with medevacs to heal. The drones pulled at the last second to try to help defend, but it appears there's too many medevacs. Maru knows the math too well, and this means all these workers will go down.
Maru here with some very nice pushes. It just seems like he had such a good angle there. Those auto turrets did so much damage. The queens were pretty much taken out of the fight before it even began, and Maru is going to be relentlessly pushing forwards. He knows he's just got the unit advantage. Lambo can't keep up. GG Maru with a very decisive 2-0.
Beautifully done. Maru really showing when it comes to these little skirmishes, these pushes, he knows exactly where to split his army. He knows mathematically how everything is going to map out before it happens. And as the dust settles, just a handful of Terran units are left. The push continues on. The reinforcements get there, and that means Maru will be victorious here to start things off with our first best of 3 in the WCS with a 2-0 victory.
Didn't really have to give too much away either there. It was just a very nice play from him. Let's hear the thoughts from the guys on the desk with Kalaris.
That's right. Thank you very much, guys. A clinical 2-0 win coming out from Maru in the end as he's able to vanquish Lambo quite quickly. And it really felt like the first game, for me at least, was almost Maru kind of feeling out how Lambo was going to be playing, not really taking any risk, not doing anything too wild, but in the end is able to put him away.
Yeah, you know, it just kind of shows the level of Maru overall. Like, Lambo had a couple good engagements, you know, he had some good Viper usage and everything, but over time, Maru just whittles you down with his superior skill.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I think that's, for me, that was one of the scariest concepts going into this would be saying, I'm going to sit down with Maru, and in a best of 3, I'm going to outplay him and win the series. I don't think that that's something that very many people at this entire tournament can say and then do.
Yeah.
And certainly of those people, Lambo, being one of the absolute best, is not one of those guys I would say that. So he got a tough map that first one. It's a smaller size map, so that push that came out from Maru, like, absolutely sniped the 4th very easily. It was non-contested. And then for the rest of the game, he played really well, but you have to outplay Maru if you play that well, and that is... very few people can do that.
Yeah, as a Zerg player, if you fall behind against someone like Maru, if you lose that base, and even though he made the correct call, obviously transferring the drones immediately to the left top side, and he was still in there and he was fighting, but you cannot just fight a Terran at that point. You have to absolutely smash every engagement.
Which he kind of did.
Yeah.
He actually won every fight and then lost the game.
Yeah, because he never got the economic damage, right?
Yeah.
It's a 60 drone Zerg against a 76 SCV Terran. It's like, yeah, you're winning fights, but unless you kill all the Marines, all the medevacs, all the tanks, it's not enough.
And I think that's the magic of that first game, I suppose, even though Lambo's winning the fights, but it's not actually able to win the game
Losing
overall.
the war. Winning the
There you
battle.
go.
Winning the battles, losing the war.
There you go, he's doing it to me. But beyond that, it was Liberator harass, taking down 20 workers while those fights were going on, which the impactful moments for Maru.
I mean, his multitasking, again, you can name any aspect of the game. Like, yeah, Maru's so good at that. Isn't that crazy that while that fight was going on, 2 Liberators killed all the drones? That's just how he functions.
I love how you mentioned that, James, because that's one of those tiny moments that sets Maru apart from the other Terrans. There's a lot of Terrans who can make a big fight and micro very well in that engagement, and then they shift you the Liberators. But Maru, during those fights, he's like, you're taking care of this with a spore crawler? Would be a shame if I move my Liberator again.
Wow,
yeah, exactly. And then you think like you're taking care of it. But then you actually look at your base and you lost 7 drones again. It's like, come on, when did you do that?
1 health Liberator. He's just Maru's like, no, I got time to do this. No problem.
Well, we can talk about Game 2 in a few moments' time here, but let's head over to an interview to hear from Maru, our winner.
Okay, thank you guys. I'm here with Maru. Congratulations, you just won against Lambo. And actually, you never played him before. It was the first time. So how did you prepare and what did you expect from him? 우승 너무 축하드립니다. 이제 람보랑 해서 우승을 하셨는데요. 첫 경기였어요, 람보랑. 어떻게 준비하시고 어떤 경기를 예상하셨었나요?
일단 저희 팀에 병렬이 형이 있기 때문에 그냥 병렬이 형이랑만 엄청 연습을 많이 해가지고 저거 전에 자신감이 있었는데 그래도 오늘 잘 풀린 것 같아서 다행인 것 같아요.
So he says, we have Rogue in our team, so I practiced a lot against Rogue for my TVZ. So I was pretty confident coming into this match, and I'm relieved that everything went really well. So Maru, you had an incredible year, like 3 times justly called as champion, and now finally you're at the WCS Global Finals. How do you feel coming to this tournament? 정말 올해 정말 우수한 성적을 거두시고 3연속 우승 GSL도 하시고 이제 마지막 관문에 이르셨는데요. 어떠신가요?
제가 3년 만에 블리즈컨에 오다 보니까 일단 긴장도 많이 되고 떨떠름한 감이 있어가지고 차츰차츰 이기고 적응해야 될 것 같아요.
So it's been 3 years that I haven't been playing on this tournament. So I'm a bit I feel a bit weird, and I think I will have to take it step by step to reach the end. And last question, so there's 16 best players of the world gathered here in this tournament. So who do you think can stop you from reaching the title? 정말 이 세상에서 제일 잘하는 16명의 선수가 모였는데 어떤 선수가 약간 좀 걸림돌이 될 수 있을까요?
저는 항상 똑같듯이 경렬이 형이랑 태양이 형이 제일 무섭네요.
As I always say, I'm always scared of Rogue and TY. Thank you very much, Maru, and congratulations again, and best of luck for the next game. And back to you, Killers.
Thank you very much. How'd you done overall? Good to hear from Maru coming into this. What's up, Jeff?
Boo on him.
Because?
Rogue and TY, he says. Listen.
I know he didn't say SOS. What's the deal with that?
All right, okay. There's a conspiracy. It's like, this is like, you know, if anyone watches any wrestling at any point in time,
A little bit.
this is the two guys, okay? Rogue and TY. No.
He's playing it down for just a moment, Jeff.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know, I'm onto him. I'm onto him.
I think so. Let's go back to the series as a whole, though. Game number 1 is how it was. Game number 2 was almost a complete polar opposite of what we saw. Once Maru had felt him out, he was deciding to go all aggressive.
Yes and no. It was again a good defense against a very tough strategy. This is so funny, by the way, because we're all talking about this too. Like, Terrans will not proxy barracks until the big tournament. They're like, there's this strategy that I don't even practice that will actually just win games. But Lambo defended it really well. He came out pretty okay. I wouldn't say necessarily he was like way ahead, but he certainly wasn't behind. And that's a pretty good situation against a Maru like that. It was looking good, but then the execution of that initial push, it's not even like Maru didn't go into it 20 or 30 supply up, which is what happens for a lot of Terrans.
Yeah.
He actually went into it equal or behind, but his micro is on a different freaking level. And Artosis will talk about all his stats and how good they are, and he's not wrong. But his micro, as people are talking about, is one of the ways that you separate him from everybody else.
Roddy?
Yeah, we're looking at some of the highlights of Game 1, but we went over that one already a little bit. I think in Game 2, the follow-up, that Hellion drop, it may not look like the most successful Hellion drop of all time, but it's a bunch of Queens chasing the Hellions. He's getting 6 drones while there were Zerglings out and all of the drones are not mining. That's the kind of stuff, that's all that Maru needs, you know? Just that little pushback of Serral's build order, and that allows Maru's build and his push to become so much stronger. And like Jeff said, I mean, the micro and the execution, the focus fire with the tanks and the Marines, he's the best for a reason, right?
Yeah, it's like Jeff said, you have to kind of like smash what he's doing if you want a chance to be victorious. I mean, just everything he does, guys.
The fact that these Hellions got themselves 13 drones alone, Roddy.
Yeah, no, they're getting a lot of damage done in a phase in the game where, you know, if the Queens are in slightly better position, the Lings are in, like, Zergling speed would finish up a few seconds quicker as well. There's a chance, and instead of all that lost mining time, that doesn't happen, and he only ends up losing 2 or 3 drones. But it's these small things, and that's all that Maru needs as a follow-up of, yes, the proxy barracks were defended well, but let's not ignore the fact that like 12 or 14 drones are way out in the map fighting Marines. Like, it also hurts Zerg.
I mean, knock-on effects unfortunately hurt Lambo. I mean, even towards the end of the middle of this engagement, Baneling speed is only just finished, and then by the time that even finishes, Maru's picking up. He's moving away those Marines. Very clinical.
Just strategy-wise, I'm a little bit worried because Lambo has more to show, and I know a lot of people are tuning into this tournament that perhaps did not watch Lambo or didn't see him throughout the year. He's a phenomenal player. He just played the best player, if not the second best player in the world, and it looked very one-sided. I need him against either, he can beat Neeblet, you can play straight up against him, good, or Neeb, but if he gets TY or something, don't do this. Don't go into it and be like, I'm going to just literally outplay TY, because you will also see a very similar result from a very good player in Lambo, but in this short best of 3, you got to go in with a Roach +1 timing attack, a quick Ravager timing. You got to do something crazy. Roddy?
Once again, I think it's important to mention that for Lambo, it's just so tough to get ready for a match against Maru. There isn't anyone. He's been trying. He's been hitting up those European Terrans that are barely, you know, they woke up a little bit early and they play some games on the American server. And he's like telling me this morning at breakfast, he's like, man, I walked by Maru's PC 20 times yesterday, all day long. He's playing against Rogue. He's like, this is so messed up. And he's like messaging Kelazura and Clem. It's like, guys, anybody available to play?
Yeah,
You know, that's just stuff to get ready.
It's
for
a
game
lot
like
of money, you guys.
It
If
is.
you make it out of this group, it goes from like 10,000 to 20 or 14 or something like that. It's
14,000
life-changing
yeah.
money. So good for Maru. And I want to hear that from our top dogs, too. It really sucked if Maru came in and was like, I played 5 games. I'm going to win the whole thing. It's like, no, he wants it. And that's awesome.
Well, guys, let's take a look at the overall schedule coming up, of course, as that was our first game of the day. But don't worry, because we've got 5 more series coming your way as well. And we're going to be focusing and continuing things through Group A and B throughout the day, of course. So still a lot of good StarCraft to come, Dan.
Oh, God, yes. I mean, you know, as excited as we were for that match, it was the opening match and everything.
Yeah.
I think that might even be our weakest match of the day. The rest of these, I
Only
think I
open
look
up.
at them and they look good to me.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, guys, for now. And don't forget, at home as well, you can join in by downloading the Blizzard Esports mobile app, and you can find out everything that's going on in the Blizzard universe across all of the esports, all in one location. For now, we're going to go to a short break, and when we return, we're going to have more WCS Global Finals action in just a few moments.